you know what? I ordered extra Chinese food yesterday, and I have a whole nother one. Hello.
Hey guys.
Today it's just me and Bridget, and we are going to talk about. What are we going to talk about?
You know, we were playing with the idea of discussing how us trainers live with our dogs. We get asked a lot. People are like, oh, your dogs must be so well trained because you're a dog trainer. And we kind of wanted to delve into that a little bit. What makes things successful, the struggles that we've personally had with our own dogs, and just, share our perspective on dog ownership. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful thing.
It is. Well, with my dog, I was kind of fortunate how when I got my dog, because when I got him, he was just about, I think, 6 or 7 months old, and it was right after I kind of started working here. So I was very fortunate to kind of already have that help when I got him as a puppy too. So we started training about a month after that, about when he was 8 months old. And so with that, a lot of puppy stuff was definitely the biggest issue. The jumping, barking, stuff like that. He didn't really chew on much, but the biggest problem I think that we had to work through was getting to the trash and counter surfing, mm-hmm. Which I feel like is a pretty common thing for the puppies. But as we started doing the training, it was something that we were able to kind of figure out different ways just from learning from the other trainers here and stuff. And since then, it's been really good. We were able to kind of correct and curve those behaviors. But I think to go into the whole, well, your dogs must be perfect and everything, mm-hmm. Sullivan is not perfect. And I will be the first one to admit it. There are definitely things that, we have kind of slacked on and stuff, and we try to fix up, if we go X amount of time without working on it or focusing on certain things. Excitement level can be a difficult thing with certain people that he knows. My dad being one person especially, that he just kind of like loses it a little bit. So something that we definitely need to be on top of. The good thing about it is that what those mm-hmm. issues are. I think that's like been the best thing with the training is that, and this is something I always tell everyone as well, but if you sit back and think about it, you can tell kind of what your dog's triggers are. Mm-hmm. If you can think about certain situations where you've had issues with your dog, for the most part, you can kind of see, okay, well, if my dad's coming over, this is what we're going to have to do. You can be a little bit more on top of it. So that's kind of how we've gone about it. But yeah, other than that, I think he's been relatively good. Socialization is something that we've needed to work on as he's grown into maturity. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's another big thing that I always can relate to a lot of clients with, is they have a puppy and they're super social or whatever, and then they hit that 2-3-year-old mark.
Go through maturity.
Yes.
I remember
it gets worse.
Yeah, Sully, when he first came in and he was very playful. Yeah. We considered him very social. He could socialize with any dog. Yeah. And then I think as he started to reach sexual maturity, he's growing up, you started to see specifically that there are some other male dogs that he was like, hey. Yes. And it was never anything, like, correct me if I'm wrong, that was like egregious, but
no, there
just takes a little bit more.
There were never any injuries or anything like that. Yeah. But definitely situations where he had taken it too far, like he had not given an appropriate correction or mm-hmm. not taken an appropriate correction, which is like the two big things that we look for, and it's definitely with other males is what I've come to kind of through practicing with it found that it kind of triggers him a little bit more. So yeah, definitely not perfect, but he's good, especially for his age and his breed and everything, I think. But
you manage him the way that it matters to you, and
yes.
you have him under control. And
yes. And it's certain situations that, again, you know you're going on a walk or to Edgewater or something like that, I'm a little bit more on top of them. If it's something I'm just hanging out at home with my wife or something, then obviously we don't really work too many bed stays or down stays anymore, because it's something that we're through training for almost 4 years now. It's something that I know if I need him to go, he can do it. So
is he really 4 years old?
Yeah.
About 4? Oh wow. I remember when you started, he was just like a little itty bitty baby thing.
Just a little guy.
And he's very like friendly to people, very just a lovable, sweet soul.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just that, just the maturity of dogs and stuff. But even since that maturity level and seeing a couple incidences, I'm still manage it to where I feel comfortable with letting him socialize with certain dogs, obviously. But because of that, I've seen a lot of success lately with it. So I'm starting to, and again, relating to clients and stuff that have dogs that need to work on socialization, you need to kind of build your confidence up for yourself, as the owner, and allowing them to kind of expand those horizons and maybe socialize with other males in for Sully's situation that he might have struggled with before, but because of this continuous success of you kind of controlling situations and managing, the time that you're socializing and stuff, that it's been really successful. So I've been able to kind of push those limits a little bit more and allow him kind of to go back into bigger socials with more males and stuff like that. But
you're able to be like really comfortable. One thing I've noticed you do is like you're pretty much the only one that socializes him, and you like to be present. So you're making sure that the corrections that he's given are fair and effective.
Yes.
And that's something that we do here as a staff. I think like we all will use each other's dogs in social if they're social dogs. And if they're supervised, we always want to have that respect with each other that we're going to ask first. We're going to be like, hey, can he come out?
Right.
So I guess if you could go back and raise Sully again, what would you do differently?
If I could do it differently, I would I would definitely be more aware of the socials and be more aware of the age at which I was socializing, because again, puppy stuff, he was totally fine, and I definitely fell into that situation too of, oh, well, he was fine as a puppy, he can play with any dog in any situation, and didn't realize that he's now 2 years old and he's no longer a puppy, he is starting to mature. But I wasn't changing my situation with his situation, So that's definitely something I wish I would have been more aware of. And then other than that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he works, we could definitely tune up like off-leash stuff. Off-leash isn't, I don't really use it a whole lot unless we're like just playing fetch or something.
It's maybe not one of your goals for him, and that's okay to have like goals that are not the same.
Right. So it's some people like they come into training, they want their dog off leash, right? And that's fine. That's a goal. That's definitely a good goal to kind of reach and stuff. But for me, we live on the west side of Cleveland. It's like walking around the block or something like that. Like, I don't need him off leash for that,
Sure.
But if it's something where we do go to Edgewater or something, then, obviously I feel more comfortable having him off and confident that if I take him off, he's going to listen, So again, it's good. It's good enough that, he responds to my verbal commands the first time and everything consistently, regardless of distractions. But yeah, something that would maybe be like the one other thing that I would maybe kind of focus on. But
I think it's like such an excellent point that when the dogs are puppies, the common knowledge is to socialize them with everything all the time, get them out into the world and have everybody come up and pet them and just be a love fest. And sometimes we're like, oh, they're doing so well with other dogs. I want them to be with other dogs all the time. And then as they reach the maturity, people start to see a shift in the behavior. And people are like, what the hell? Like, this dog was so social.
Right.
And they can't really wrap their heads around that sometimes it does take 1.5 to 2 years where the dog's starting to reach the peak of their hormones. Even if they are spayed or neutered, they still have the, I think it's the frontal lobe that has the hormones that are being produced, and they're reaching into their own things that they were accepting as a puppy. They're not so accepting of.
Yeah, I think as a puppy, they naturally are just a little bit more like submissive. They're kind of more observant. They're just letting things go. As they get older, they get that more dominant, like, okay, I'm starting to kind of learn my own path here and stuff. And that's where, those little fits can kind of come into play.
Sure.
But I mean, for the most part, you know, like you were saying, like we've been able to, again, I was lucky enough that he was so young when we started training, that we've been able to find the way he kind of fits into our life and our routine and stuff, you know, and it's been great so far, you know.
I mean, he's a great dog, and like, you love him very much, and it's just so nice that he's so friendly and so sweet to everybody.
Yeah, the really, I would say, and this is something that I think we honestly just got lucky with, but he is amazing at the vet.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I'm always like very proud of him, and it's it was some, you know, that's a big struggle for a lot of people. But I think we were fortunate to get lucky with that. Where he was just like, whether he's just oblivious kind of to the situations of getting shots and everything, but and we got him during COVID too, so it was when we were going in for those first couple vet visits for the first like year or so of his life, it was always those like drop off. They'd come out and then they'd bring back. So it was like, we couldn't even really like know, like they would always say, oh yeah, he's good. But like, we never really knew until he was almost like 2 years old, and I went in there and he was just like flopping around and his tail's wagging, you know? But, because sometimes I think they're like, if it's not super serious, they're like, try to make it sound better for the owners. But he's always been really good with that. So I've been very fortunate.
Every dog has it's important for owners to recognize the strengths and weaknesses of your dog. And one of his strengths is he's so good with people, and his temperament is so calm, and he accepts pets. He's very social dog with people. And then, you know, some of his weaknesses, and you know how to work through all of them, but sometimes, honestly, being a dog trainer and working with dogs all day, by the time you get home, you don't exactly want to get your treat bag and go out to the field. And it's kind of like he's not causing you any major issues in your life, and you can handle the things that are actually matter to you.
Right.
And you know how to work on everything that you would want to be your goal.
If someone were to come up, absolutely.
Yeah,
and that's another good point to make too, is, you know, when he's out back and he's going to the bathroom, he comes in, and if you're in the room, you know, he'll come sprinting up to you, but he knows he's not supposed to jump. So that's, again, like something where it's like, I'm not majorly concerned about it, because I know that he knows his space. Like, he's not going to slam into you, or he's not going to jump on you and take you down and stuff. So, so that's something that, you know, again, managing wise, if I needed him to, if I knew it was someone that had another dog out there, or just or didn't like Sully running up to him, you know, I could have him in that heel, and I know I could take that control. But it's good to kind of have that availability, you know.
I'd say the things that we teach in our program, I've definitely done everything with my own dogs, and my dogs know bed stays and downs and recall, but I really find myself not using obedience in my everyday life besides with Sunday, who comes to work with me every day. And primarily the obedience we do is like the come and the recall, placing her on a bed or in a down and having her wait. Just very practical things in my life. So I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, I use what I need to use and I make sure my dog can do what I'm asking them to do. But outside of that, I'm not going home and doing 15 reps of bed stay or down. And I'm not putting this pressure on myself to make my dog be perfect. Because the way that I live with my dogs works for me 100%.
And that's something I'm sure you do as well, but like relate to clients as well, is that like, at least for the point of board and train, one-on-ones are a little different, but board and trains is, my job is to train the dog. My job is to get a pretty solid foundation for that training. So that way when you go home and you start practicing and stuff, you can kind of just roll right into it. The owner themselves might need a little bit more practice and, clarification and stuff, and that's what the follow-ups are for. But that's something that, I'm the same way. It's like I always say, like the last thing I want to do coming from work is work with my dog for 2 hours, So being able to just kind of work the commands into realistic situations that they would need it to, watching TV, eating dinner, cooking dinner, whatever, that they can just practice those durations or repetitions for during commercial breaks or something, for those 2 minutes the commercials are on, you try to get as many beds down as possible, right? And that way, it can kind of become more of like a game, where it's like something where it's like our goal to achieve. It's like, okay, we got 2 downs that last commercial break. Let's see if we can get 3 down. You know what I mean? And so I think it's worked out for a lot of people, and for me especially, it was something where me and Mallory are very competitive. So something that if we can make a game out of something, especially the training, then it'll be more fun for us, So having something like that where it's like commercial break, we're like, okay, my turn. We're trying to do as many beds or downs or something, and then it switches. Get
them accustomed to like keeping the skill up of being able to do those things with practicing in a way that feels most realistic and easy for you. Rather than like feeling like you have to force yourself to do this, or sometimes in life, like living with your own dogs as trainers, it's less about like every day. And from time to time, I'll live with my dogs. Life will get busy. Life happens. And then I can realize that something with one of my dogs is a little bit sloppy. And then for the next week or so, I'll make sure to individualize that dog and that issue we're having. And we can turn that issue around because we know the dog already has the knowledge to do so. It just becomes about us holding them accountable. And if we're slipping a little bit in our lives, we have a busy time.
And that's definitely what it is.
It's the consistency. Because even my dog Sunday is the biggest pusher. And there was a time I left my e-collar at work over the weekend. And at home, she's starting to realize, like, she's realizing she's not getting corrections. And she's like, haha, I can do this. So we went back to, in that situation, I could have come back to work and got my e-collar, but we just used a lot of leash and food and things, and we were still able to achieve that. And of course, when I came back into work, we just drilled the bed stays again, and she did perfect. So
yes, they're very opportunistic, and that's
Sully's
a smart guy, and he knows that if he can get away with something, then he'll try it at least. But and that's something that we definitely need to keep an eye on for sure as well. Just making sure that it's kind of fresh. But I always say the same thing. Because that's another thing that a lot of clients I feel like get concerned about is if we go on vacation for 2 weeks or something, or we send him to boarding or whatever, is he gonna forget it, or is she gonna forget it? And it's something that, again, with the 4 weeks and the board and train, the teaching stuff, with that consistency for 4 weeks straight, it is something that
a lot of success.
Yes, it's something that the dog will never forget it, but it'll definitely. I always kind of relate to, like,
if you allow those bad habits to kind of return, then the good habits obviously become weaker, but they don't go away. You know what I mean? So it's something that you just need to kind of get that consistency back to change those habits back to where you want it to be.
You can be like out of practice of doing those things, or if you're on vacation, leaving your dog with your parents, things like that. Coming back into it, they're out of practice of those behaviors, but does not mean they've completely forgot. Like, how many dogs do we have that come in for like a tune-up or a follow-up or boarding that haven't been with Miracle for years? And the owners come in and they're like, he's forgotten everything. Everything's gone down the hill. Because life naturally happens. We're always there for follow-up support, but sometimes people spend a little bit too much time not reaching out about things, and we get it. We're always willing to work with the dog when they come back, but in those specific examples, dog being out of practice for several years, we do a little bit of an intro, but I find that the dogs know it. They pick things up right away.
2-3 days.
And it's just about holding them accountable at that point. So, like, living with your dogs, like the way that I live with mine, we have a lot of structure, and I have a big pack, so I need a lot of management. But for the most part, all of my dogs can be out together without me worrying that they're going to fight. They do not go ballistic at the door when the mailman comes. I live in a very busy city, so living there, my neighbors are always out, and all the dogs have had to learn we do not bark at the neighbors. We do not go ballistic. And I'm correcting more behavioral things to keep the pack calm as a whole. If I see little issues between my dogs, I'll make sure to work on that. But for day to day, like, I only consistently use training for one of my dogs. And everybody else, like, they know their place. They know what I need them to do. And that's all I need for my dogs. I don't need the fancy stuff. Yes, they can all do bed stays. They can all hold down. But I don't find myself using those daily. And I think when people have the idea of training, they're like, this is the rest of my life. I have to do these reps, and I have to have X, Y, and Z with my dog. And in the teaching stages, like you said, we want to encourage owners to work with their dogs as much as possible, get them to do the things, get proficient at it. But over time, it's going to be so much more about the life you're setting up with your dog that you want to get to, this equilibrium, rather than constant management. We're constantly managing, we're constantly annoyed with our dog, we're constantly frustrated. Something's wrong. We're not doing something right.
And I think going back to kind of what you said before with, like, you know, if I see something kind of slipping from myself or from Sully's, you know, training and stuff, I have the knowledge where, you know, a week or so I can fix that up. And that's exactly what the follow-up support's there for too. Because it's understandable that if you start seeing something regress, or you start to see a new behavior come up, you know, again, from the puppy to adulthood, it's something that, you know, that's what that support's for. And so I always encourage people that, like, even if you see, like, one time that they growled because you tried to grab their bone, or something that, you know, like, that's a bigger issue, but you know what I mean? Like, just, then it's something where you, like, reach out. Like, we're not gonna, if you tell us, I went down to go grab a toy from my dog and they growled at me, but, you know, it's probably because I haven't really done much training in the last 2 months or something. We're not gonna, like, judge you for that. You know, the main thing is, okay, well, let's address the issue, and then, you know, we get you in, tune up what we need to, and then we address the issue, you know, if it is even one, you know, like, it might not even be one, but it's still good to be proactive on it. But
it's like teaching owners to live a life with their dogs that's manageable for them, and utilizing things that you care about in your daily life with your dog. So how many times do we hear, like, oh, like, we put the dog on a bed because we don't want him jumping on the guests, or we don't want him knocking over grandma when she comes over, and we use the bed so much, and then the off times that they don't use the bed, the dog breaks the bed stay, and we're still seeing these really hyperactive behaviors because people don't realize you can just correct the behavior that's happening at hand without having to manage your dog into a position, without having to, if your dog is safe around people, always putting them in their crate when guests come. We're avoiding the issue at hand. And then when life inevitably, like David said in one of his podcasts, when life gets in the way, and we're not prepared to address things, we see big issues.
Yeah.
So it's always okay to, like, your dogs are going ballistic, correct them, rather than being like, you're barking right now, I'm going to put you on the bed to manage the barking.
Yeah.
I want to correct the barking.
Correct it
and then if
first.
I'd like to, I could put my dog on the bed to kind of calm that state of mind. But I shouldn't be using my obedience to kind of mask the actual issues that are happening.
Yeah, I agree. And I always encourage the same thing. If the problem is going to present itself, use it as an opportunity to work through it and address it.
Yeah.
And then you can go, once you do address it, if they're still amped up or whatever, then you can go and put them in a down or a bed or something to kind of calm that mindset. But you have to calm the physical body first, or correct it to address the issue. And that's something, luckily, I don't remember Sully ever really being a huge jumper, and again, I think it's just because we worked on it relatively soon. But it is one thing that, again, my dad is the one of a few people that he just goes crazy for,
Does your dad feed into it? Is he like, hey, buddy?
He was when he was younger.
Yeah,
So I think it's something that since telling him and stuff, he's very understandable with, trying to be better about it. Sometimes I think he will kind of forget, and he feeds into it a little bit.
Grandpa's man.
Yeah, I know. Well, he's also the one kind of sneaking treats under the table and stuff too, for sure. But that's a relationship.
Sure.
Again, it's something where it's just like, and then if he does forget or something, always positive. You know what? It's fine. If that's going to be the thing, then fine. But I'm still going to correct him, right? You're going to do what you want to do. That's fine, right? But Sully still can't do what he's doing.
You can't control like people's behavior always. You can like politely be like, hey, don't hype my dog up.
Right.
But if my dog still performs the behavior with the guest hyping them up or the person hyping them up, I'm 100% going to hold my dog to the standards that they know and the expectations we've set. You don't jump on people, even if they're like, come here, buddy.
Right.
And then that kind of, the guest is kind of like, whoa, you corrected the dog.
Yeah.
And then they realize the part they're playing into things. So it's not an excuse for people like, if you're like, oh, but they love my friends. They love one of my friends and they just lose their marbles with this friend. You need to be able to have a stronger relationship with your dog than your dog does to your friend. Because it's just novelty. They like that person because they pet them or give them treats or something. And that strengthens over time. But ultimately, we want our dogs to respect us.
I don't know. It's been really cool. And again, even just talking about it now, how much I can relate to the clients and stuff because of my dog. And I think that's, again, important for them to know that we are not perfect. Our dogs are not perfect, even though we are trainers and stuff. It's something that, we can relate to it. It's something that, if you are struggling with certain issues, I'm sure I can relate to the issue,
And the love that people have for their dogs. Like, I fucking love the shit out of my dogs. Like, my dogs are my babies. They're my reason for, like, getting up and doing things every day. And I just feel such empathy and love toward them that I can completely relate to owners that feel that same way.
Yeah.
And sometimes they go in and they're not, people are like, well, you're a dog trainer, so maybe you're very serious with your dogs. I play around with my dogs. I kiss my dogs. I baby my dogs.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, none of them are performing asshole behaviors that's getting out of hand.
Yep.
Because we have a little bit of that boundary setting. They know how far they can push things.
Yes.
But I'm no different than you. I kiss on my dogs. I love on my dogs. Yep. I play with my dogs. Sometimes they get table scraps, They lick plates.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
It's something that, I definitely roughhouse with Sully and everything, but yeah, exactly what you're saying. There is that line though where a lot of times there's a little less of the structure, so the relationship of the emotions can kind of take control, and we love our dogs so much, so we let them slip in this category or this way or whatever, you know. But those are the things that, you know, let it work around to what you care about, but correct for those things, you know. Use your training to focus on those aspects that you want to fix, so that way you can mess with your dog and you can cuddle with your dog and you can have them in your bed or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
and live a balanced life.
Yeah. But because you know that, okay, I can let you do these things that I don't really care about regardless, because I know that you know where the line is of, well, you know that's wrong to do, so I'm going to correct for that. Right?
Yeah.
It gains a little bit more of that respect kind of relationship from it.
And you can have your boundaries, like, for example, like the boundaries that I'm talking about, the lines that I'm crossing is you don't jump on me, you don't jump on guests, we don't go ballistic over sounds, noises, knocks on the door, things like that. I'm fortunate enough that I don't deal with resource guarding or aggression issues with any of my dogs, and I never have. Aside from Spork, who's just kind of got a screw loose in there somewhere. But we've been able to handle all of that. And like an example of a regression that I had recently is with my boy Minnow, my angel baby. We started to realize that I slipped up on crating him. And I was like, he's fine. Like, he'll be okay out. And for a couple months, he was totally fine out of the crate when I'd leave the house. And then I'd start to notice the gates would be closed of going up to upstairs, but I'd go and the trash would be all over the floor, or there would be accidents in the house. And I was like, all right, I got to start crating Minnow again. And that was my own fault. I let things slip. But Minnow is an escape artist, can jump over gates. I have a 5-foot X-pen in my house, and I'd put him in there, and he'd be behind me in a second. I'm like, how the hell did you get out?
Too, right?
He's like 5.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So he's an escape artist, and he's tiny, and he needs a special crate so he doesn't escape. So something we started doing is crating him again, and he's got a little bit of crate anxiety in the new crate, so we made sure to condition the crate properly, get him in there, have him hold crate stays. And then from time to time, we were having a little bit of accidents in the crate. So we had to go in and treat him like he was a puppy again. I was on top of him about his water intake. Not that I was restricting it, but I just kind of got more aware. And we had to go back to square one with some of that stuff. Yeah. And now, a couple weeks out, we're seeing a lot of success because I noticed the issue and we're starting to work on it. Yeah. And things like that are going to come up inevitably in people's lives. Like, things that your dog was fine with for months, maybe something's changing, shifting. We don't know why. Right. We don't know if it's just like one time Minnow realized he could jump over the gate, and he's like, I'm going to do this every single time.
Wait, this thing is completely ineffective? Sweet.
Yes.
I can do what I want. Yeah. Right. And that's a dog, you know, they're very opportunistic, so it's something if they know, if they want to do something, they know that they can, what's stopping them from doing it, you know? Yeah. So it's something that, you know, those are exactly things that we need to kind of determine whether it's important to work on that or to not, you know? But it was something that probably only until the accident started happening in the house and the trash that it was like, okay, now it's a problem. Yeah. Before, if he's running around or something, I'm sure like hurting himself from jumping over is probably the biggest concern.
Yeah, that was definitely our concern.
And then once you started seeing the other things, it's like, okay, now things are piling up. We need to get on it, you know? And that's the same thing with Sully too. Sometimes, you know, if it's with the cat food was another big one. We got Simon. That was one thing because it was before then he was the only pet in the house. Yeah. And now it was like, then it was like, oh, there's a litter box and there's food.
Delicious.
And he was definitely and something, you know, we were the same way. We were like, you know what? He's been doing so good for the first 3 years, you know, and he's been killing it. So, you know, I'm sure there wouldn't be a problem with the litter box and everything like that. Yeah. There definitely was. But we realized it pretty quickly, and so it was something that we were able to correct for him going at the the litter box and the food bowl and everything. So, so luckily it got nipped in the bud. Now he doesn't mess with it. You know.
Yeah. When we see like things come up with our dogs, inevitably we can go through a period of frustration where we're like, why is this happening? And then our frustration inevitably gets taken out on the dog.
Yes.
And we're like, why are you doing this?
Yes.
And we can either live with that frustration and live in the cycle of they keep performing this behavior, we keep getting frustrated, we yell at them, and then we kind of have harbor and resentment. We go in that circle where we can just take the time to address it and be like, I need to get out of this cycle for myself.
Yeah.
And it is actively probably not something that's your dog's fault completely. You have to look at the whole picture. What could I be doing that's going to change this?
Yep.
For Minnow, it said, I have to start creating him again. We have to work on that. And it ended up being really productive when I was able to take the time and do it.
Yeah.
And then I'm not coming home and picking up trash all over my second floor. And I'm not resenting him and getting mad at him.
Yeah.
He's a little shit.
And that's another thing, you know, it's especially when you're first addressing issues with the dogs. Most of the time they don't, until they are addressed, the dogs don't know it's a problem.
Exactly.
You know? If they're getting in the trash, they don't know that there could be harmful stuff in there. They get it. They just smell something good and they want to get in there.
They're not sure. And like people are like, they know it was bad.
Yeah.
And like, they know it was bad because you're like, who did this?
You're
and then,
screaming in their face. They're going to be weirded out at most.
Yeah. But actively, like the guilt, I don't think dogs can truly feel guilt. I don't think your dog knows the difference between wrong and right unless you're actively teaching them and putting into some, like correcting them when they perform the behaviors or helping manage some of those behaviors.
Yeah. I feel like it's only until the instructions are given that it's like they know the boundary of breaking a command or something like that, but it's something that, you know, we just only with the clarification do they know that when they get the correction what they did wrong. You know, when that friend comes in that they really love, you know, the criteria goes out the window, at least most likely the first time. And so they break the command, they get the correction, they go over, and then they get put back on the bed, you know. So it's something that, again, just repetition, consistency is what will help with that.
If, like actively working through like problem behaviors too, and put yourself in a position where you're drilling them out rather than waiting for things to happen organically, because it can be very difficult to maintain the focus of addressing a behavior all the time. We're humans, we're going to have things that are going to come up. So if I'm working on bed stays or people coming over, the next time that happens, I'm going to make sure that I'm in a position to address the behaviors that are happening or drill it out. Like if one thing that with Pip, like that we started working on is her barking was really bad with the mailman and things. So I'd have Justin go out, knock on the door, knock on the windows, and we'd address that issue specifically. And now she's a lot less likely to be performing those issues because we've addressed it.
Yeah.
So things like that, like I have a big, large pack, and very different from what we said last week. We were talking about like structure of large packs. I feel like and it could be a bunch of different things, whether it's the breed of my dog is less genetically likely to fight or push boundaries, they're fairly easy dogs, or if it is how I manage my household. But I'm lucky enough that I don't find myself having to use a ton of micromanagement with my pack because everybody knows their place and they don't try. Every now and then, two of my dogs will get into a funny little squabble and we'll address it. We'll go through it, but for the most part, I can have all my dogs out together, and that's the lifestyle I want to live. I want to lay on my hammock in my backyard with a drink in my hand and all my dogs running around. And I let a lot of things that don't bother me go. So my dogs play a lot, they interact with each other a lot. I'm always supervising them in case shit hits the fan. But the life I want to live with my dogs is all of them being out together in a safe, effective manner.
And I think that's probably has to be some importance of it too, is them being able to socialize with you supervising, knowing that, you know, if shit hits the fan, if something goes too far, you're right there to put them, you know, give that correction, put them in their spot and everything. But other than the big stuff, you're letting all the little stuff go. So they're able to kind of like talk it out and create their own little hierarchy, you know, and know where they all lie and stuff like that, you know. So I'm sure that probably has a lot to do with it as well, you know, but that's good.
I don't try to like discourage my dogs from communicating with each other either. So like I have a lot of seniors, and the seniors don't like dealing with a lot of the puppies' energies. So I allow my seniors to safely and effectively correct the younger dogs, and I don't feel the need to jump in and scream at the seniors for giving those effective corrections. Like Pip has this thing where she likes to play dentist, and she'll like open Nellie's mouth up and start licking, and he's like, this is fine for the first 2 minutes, and then he gets really agitated and he's like, get away from me, and he gives her a big correction, and she squeals and runs away, and that right there is the perfect communication. He's had too much, he's telling her to back off, and effectively she's like, okay, I have boundaries set. If he was getting on top of her and really nailing her for it and it was overcorrection, of course I'd step in.
Yeah.
But allowing those little things to go sometimes is really interesting.
Yeah. It makes the younger dogs understand where their boundaries are, and the older dogs understand that they can speak up for themselves. Because I find that's where a lot of fights will happen too, is where if a dog doesn't feel like it can give an appropriate correction to tell a dog to go and screw off, then it's something that then they like bottle up and they just like, oh my God, I can't do it because I'm going to get in trouble, but this is really annoying. It's really annoying. And then it just turns into a straight fight. Then it's like, okay, now I can't do anything, so I just explode, you know? And so, I definitely feel like having those appropriate responses and corrections is very vital to, especially a situation with multiple dogs. You know? But it's good that we both have different situations too, where it's just the dog and cat and then your pack, but still a lot of overlay as well, you know, even with very different situations.
And like the one way that I live with my dogs, that I'm sure that you have some form of management for Sully too, is some of my dogs are crated when I'm not home, or all of them are put away, I should say. I have an X-pen. I utilize that, but everybody is in their respective spot where my dogs aren't together when I'm not home, because I don't want to have too many behaviors start to happen when I'm not home. 3 of my seniors are put away together, and that has worked for me. You know, we have a little puppy cam. Sometimes we'll check in on them. But that works as far as like short term. If I'm going to be gone a really long time, we'll consider moving them.
Yeah.
But everybody knows the rules. They love their life.
Yeah. Sully's, we usually don't create Sully. Because it's something him and Simon get along well enough and everything. But again, it's for certain dogs. If that's what it is, then fine. Other dogs, it's something if they are going to the bathroom or getting into stuff or whatever. I mean, I think the crate's the only way you're going to confidently eliminate those issues. You
cannot eliminate bathroom issues or destructive issues without crating your dog. When you're not home.
It's like barking and stuff, you know, you can go outside with the e-collar and you can wait for him to start barking, correct that stuff, whatever, you know, but I mean, it's going to just be so much more like micromanaging, I feel like, in those situations, and it's easier not to do that, you know, and then it's just an easy way to affect it, and then you just correct for the stuff inside the crate, the barking, the scratching, and everything like that, you know, but luckily Sully's been pretty good.
And that works for you. Like, people will come in sometimes and they leave their dogs out of the crate and they come home and they've never had an issue. The dog doesn't bathroom in the house. The dog doesn't destroy things. So in that scenario, why would I push somebody to use a crate if the lifestyle's working?
Right.
If I hear you come in and you're like, they tear up my couch sometimes, they get into the trash, they're peeing and pooping, I'm going to suggest crate training. But not everybody needs that. And we don't have to follow the same structure for every single dog.
Yep.
And that's what's beautiful about dog training is we can do things that we care about and that vibe with our life with our dogs. And I don't know about you, but when I first started here, I had this idea of what my dog should look like as a social standpoint with my coworkers and what I thought dog training was. And I don't do a lot of the things that I used to do with my dogs.
Yeah.
And because I don't micromanage them, I find that my life's more enjoyable.
Yeah. And that's the goal, you know, that really is the goal, is to not have to micromanage. You know, it's something that I want to be able to live the life that I want to with my dog, but also not to be like hawked over him.
I know, yeah.
Times, you know? Yeah. Because then that's just not enjoyable. That isn't the life I want, you know. Now again, I think when I first started training, it was important to be aware of situations and not so I wasn't letting them slip and be consistent, you know, with it, the training. But, you know, that's something as well, is if you're consistent right from the start and you are like dedicated to this training and stuff, that gets your dog into those new routines and those new habits so much faster, and they make them so much more solid, so you can start to kind of relax on it a little bit. You can
enjoy your dog.
Yes.
If you're able to put in the work to set those boundaries, your dog has to have boundaries. You have to set the boundaries, or you're going to live a life where your dogs are completely ruling your house.
Yeah.
And how's that fun for anybody?
Right.
Like,
and yeah, I would probably say I was very strict with the criteria and stuff. So kind of what you were saying too, like when I first started here, and just started training in general with Sully. Very strict on everything for at least the first year or so. E-collar was on morning and night, or morning till night, everywhere we go, or inside the house and stuff. But once that was like really solid and stuff, probably starting at like, I don't know, a year or two ago, it was something that I'm still putting the e-collar anytime we leave the house or anytime someone comes over. But if it's just me and Mallory and we're just hanging out or something, I don't usually put the e-collar on because I just don't really need it, you know? The goal, and that's just being honest, but, you know.
Yeah. And the goal of our training and what we're teaching clients is not to have structure, rules, things all the time and us to be this hard ass. Our goal is to teach our dogs how to fit into our lifestyle that is cohesive and everybody feels like they can enjoy each other. Our dog's not making us miserable. Our dog is not a robot.
Yes.
That we're living like this beautiful life where we can look back at the dog and be like, man, that was a fucking great dog. I love that dog. Instead of being like, that dog frustrated me its entire life and pushed on me.
Especially being like our first dog too, you know? I think we got incredibly lucky, and me and Mallory joke about it all the time. You know, we always joke that we kind of screwed ourselves because nothing's going to compare to Sully. But, you know, it's something that, you know, I think we did partially just got very lucky genetically wise, behavioral wise and everything. But, I mean, the training obviously helped when we started it, and, you know, the consistency of it definitely has helped us to live our life. But yeah, it's important to do it, and it makes your life so much easier. I mean, especially first dogs, when you don't really know what you're doing yourself, you know?
Yeah. And I definitely would have, I butted heads with Sunday so much when she first came into my life, and her constant searching and seeking of food drove me absolutely insane until, you know, we really got on top of it. Like you said, for the first 6 months to a year of her life with me, we had a lot of structure, and now she knows the rules, and I find myself not having to be on top of her. I don't have to use bed stays for her not to jump on the counter or get into the food. I don't have to do all these things to avoid the incidents that she's doing or the food seeking because she stopped performing them. She knows the rules. We're very structured around food, meaning we have a lot of, like, I put the bowl down, I expect her not to knock it out of my hand. If I have a plate on the table, she would 100%, old Sunday would have knocked that plate off the table. and gotten the food and walked away.
No hesitation.
But now I can leave like an entire pizza on my table, and I'm not going to go out of sight for an hour and expect her not to do anything.
Yeah.
But I can go to the kitchen and not worry that she's going to have that impulse to go eat the food.
She's waiting for that 1 second to you to turn your back, and then she goes. And
Exactly, and that's how she used to be. She was a sneaky little thing. And she drove me absolutely insane. And I was like, what did I get myself into? And then you learn to channel this kind of stuff, and you realize that her drive for food is a strength of hers.
Yeah.
We just have to learn how to work it.
Yep.
And we did.
Absolutely. That's a great way to think about it. Yeah.
So the end message with everything is live the life with your dog that you want, but start to put in the practices that are going to get you to get to that point. And when we say structure, we mean like crate time, feeding time, potty time. All of these things are under our control.
Yeah.
And eventually that's just going to become a routine, and we're going to have to micromanage less. And our goal with it, at least what I teach, and I'm sure what you teach, is I want you to enjoy your dog to their fullest potential.
Yes. I want you to be able to live the life that you want to do.
And have your dog be able to live the life that you want it to live as well, you know, whatever those goals may be.
A dog's life is short, and unfortunately it's very, very short. And why waste any time being unhappy with their behavior?
Right.
Get out there, address what you need to address, and, love that life with your dog.